Rock bottle on the track, boy.
An investigation is underway into a deadly stabbing in Miami, but this case has ties to North Texas, and it's getting national attention. As Ariel Placencia reports, it involves a social media influencer with more than 2 million followers.
It's just heartbreaking. Everyone is just so devastated.
This group of friends told our ABC station in Miami that they were close to North Texan Christian Obumseli and his girlfriend, Courtney Clenney, an Instagram influencer and OnlyFans model.
Even though that we really lost Christian only, it feels like we also lost Courtney at the same time.
Miami police tell us there was a physical altercation between the North Texan and his girlfriend Sunday night. Police say the girlfriend was the first to call 911. Around 5 p.m. local time, police responded to a high-rise where they found Christian with an apparent knife wound to the chest. He later died at the hospital. His family in Richardson confirmed this GoFundMe page with me on Thursday. Christian was extremely compassionate with a desire always to uplift those around him, the family wrote. We will never forget his infectious smile that could light up any room or his caring spirit. According to the GoFundMe, the North Texan died a week before his 28th birthday. Loved ones offering words of support that he was, quote, a true light at Plano East. Meanwhile, police told us the girlfriend was detained and later taken to a mental institution.
Tonight, there are many unanswered questions after a stabbing death in Miami.
A man allegedly killed by his own girlfriend. So why hasn't she been charged?
The big question is here, was this done in self-defense? Miami police investigators say that this is an ongoing and very active investigation. Meantime, we spoke with a group of friends that knew this couple very well, and they detail a rocky relationship.
It's just heartbreaking. Everyone is just so devastated.
This trio was very close to 27-year-old Christian Obumseli and his girlfriend, who they've identified as 25-year-old Courtney Clenney, an OnlyFans model and Instagram influencer. So when police reported that Obumseli was fatally stabbed by Clenney on Sunday inside their Miami apartment, the friends were left speechless. They portray a very violent relationship at the hands of only one person.
I've seen her hit him. I've never seen him hit her.
Officers say there was a struggle before Obumseli was stabbed in the shoulder. He died at the hospital. Investigators are still trying to figure out what happened and if Clenney acted in self-defense.
From what we've personally experienced between the both of them, we believe that Christian wouldn't put her in a position where she would need to stab him to protect herself.
One neighbor who tells me that he has a very clear view of the couple's apartment said a week before the stabbing, things were off and that Clenney was the one getting physically abused.
I could not tell if it was open-handed or closed-handed, but he was swinging at her.
Police say in the past 3 months, they've responded to multiple disturbance calls at the couple's apartment. Their mutual friends are still trying to process what went wrong.
Even though that we really lost Christian only, it feels like we also lost Courtney at the same time because we didn't think that this is as far as it would have gone.
And following the stabbing, Clenney was detained. She was brought here to the police department for questioning, and during that process, she was threatening to kill herself. So officers took her to the hospital where she was Baker acted. As it stands at this moment, she has not been charged.
In the aftermath of a grisly crime, a social media influencer covered in blood after police say she stabbed her boyfriend to death.
And days after the killing, she's not yet facing any charges. And the victim's family wants answers.
Louis, and this story is getting national attention. Was this killing self-defense or not? The family of that man say they don't believe so, and they want to see that Instagram model arrested.
Family members of 27-year-old Christian Obumseli searching for answers after his girlfriend, 25-year-old Courtney Clenney, stabbed him to death.
I do believe she is the killer, and she does need to be arrested.
Video from TMZ showing a bloody Clenney moments after the IG model killed Obumseli inside their Miami apartment. Friends say Courtney has a violent history of being the aggressor.
I've seen her hit him. I've never seen him hit her.
But one neighbor says otherwise.
I can't tell if it was open-handed or closed-handed, but he was swinging at her.
Before Obumseli was stabbed in the shoulder, police say there was a struggle. He died at the hospital.
My brother was he was so caring.
We heard from the Obumseli family Friday. They flew in from Houston, Texas.
He was a friend to everyone. Very caring, funny, very bright.
Investigators still trying to figure out if Clenney acted in self-defense, and in the past, police have showed up for disturbance calls at the couple's apartment. An attorney for Clenney said in a statement, "Clearly none of this was intended and Courtney is struggling mentally with the aftermath of what occurred that evening. This is a tragedy for all involved, but it was not criminal conduct. Courtney was defending herself and the investigation will reveal exactly that."
And so far, that IG model has not been charged or arrested. This remains an ongoing investigation.
Following new developments in a bloody stabbing death in a Miami high-rise.
A man working in the growing cryptocurrency industry found dead inside his home, and his girlfriend, an Instagram star, seen covered in blood.
And so, Nicole and Louie, we just finished speaking with the family of Christian Obumseli. They just finished speaking with the state attorney's office here and remain confident in this investigation. But we also want to show you now, pivoting just a little bit back to the scene, that video that we actually got from TMZ showing a bloody 25-year-old Courtney Clenney, that Instagram star that you just mentioned there, moments after her boyfriend was stabbed to death. Now, police say that Clenney was in fact the one that stabbed 27-year-old Christian Obumseli to death inside their Miami apartment. This is right off of 7th Avenue. He was stabbed in the shoulder and later died at the hospital. Now, it's a really interesting story here because you have a lot of different details, a lot of different sides. Friends that were close to the couple say that their relationship, it was tumultuous, it was violent. Some say that she was the aggressor and that she suffers from mental illness. Now, a neighbor that we also spoke with this past week says that he was. We know Clenney in this instance, she is claiming self-defense. She actually had to be Baker acted after being brought in for questioning because she was threatening to kill herself. We spoke with the victim's family again just a few moments ago. They tell us that there is just no way that Obumseli put his hands on her.
Devastation doesn't quite describe what my family is experiencing right now. Yesterday, we finally told our 93-year-old grandmother that her grandson, who was expected to come home to Texas to visit for his 28th birthday, will no longer or ever be returning home. We have not had an opportunity to even start to grieve the loss of our family, of our brother, cousin, son.
Now, Clenney's attorney, Frank Prieto, sent our station this statement saying here, clearly, none of this was intended and Courtney is struggling mentally with the aftermath of what occurred that evening. This is a tragedy for all involved, but it was not criminal conduct. Courtney was defending herself and the investigation will reveal exactly that. Now, at this point, still no charges have been filed in this case. We will continue to follow that for you.
We are awaiting answers after a social media influencer is arrested. She told police she stabbed her boyfriend in self-defense.
Prosecutors say that wasn't the case. The 7 Lisa Bezios is live in Miami, outside the home where the killer crime happened.
In 7 News, just getting her warrant and being able to read it. In it, it says there were prior incidents with the model being physically violent with the victim. Also within the arrest warrant, it says that she was heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
From modeling on social media sites like Instagram and OnlyFans to accused killer.
I'm Courtney Taylor.
Courtney Taylor, whose real name is Courtney Clenney, arrested for the stabbing death of her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. Clenney was picked up in Hawaii and will be brought back to Miami-Dade to face one charge of second-degree murder with a weapon.
I think everybody is in shock, actually, like flabbergasted.
That's the reaction from shocked neighbors of the luxurious One Paraíso condo. A killing happening back on April 3rd inside Clenney's unit. Miami police investigating, and Clenney seen here in this video at the time.
I do believe she is the killer.
Obumseli's family traveling to Miami after learning of the death from the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office, but not Miami police, which they say made their unbearable pain even worse.
We're hurting right now.
My brother was so caring, funny, very bright. He had big dreams.
Clenney's lawyer says he's shocked by her arrest because it was self-defense, and in a statement explains, Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Further, we are disappointed that the state attorney sought an arrest warrant in this matter. and that Courtney was seeking treatment for her PTSD and related issues to this case, and it is an absolute injustice to charge a victim of domestic violence and human trafficking with a crime.
And around 2:30 this afternoon, the state's attorney's office is expected to hold a news conference where they will talk about this case.
Every act of violence in a relationship is always an act of domestic violence. Those words, domestic violence, should have a decidedly ugly feel to them. Domestic violence is something I and our entire Miami-Dade community has worked hard to end. Understand the pain and the tragedy that domestic violence has always produced for the direct victims and for the indirect victims, such as children. That is why I am proud to have originally created Florida's first felony domestic violence unit and have developed the basic prosecutorial approach aimed at combating domestic violence that is now used by prosecutors throughout Florida. Pain created by domestic violence is stunningly apparent when it leads to a tragic death of one of the partners. Violence brings us directly to the reason we are here today, which is the killing of Christian Obumseli on April 3rd, 2022. He died in Unit 2201 of a residence located at 3131 Northeast 7th Avenue in the city of Miami. We are charging 26-year-old Courtney Taylor Clenney with 1 count of second-degree murder in Christian's death. She has been taken into custody in Hawaii. She has not yet been brought to court for a hearing, but when she does go for a hearing, she will at that time have the option to either waive or contest extradition. It is our understanding that her lawyers had stated that she will waive extradition. In the meantime, my extradition division has been working with the Hawaiian authorities, the U.S. Marshals, and the Miami-Dade Police Department to ensure a smooth process if she does decide to waive. If she contests extradition, the law requires her to be held in Hawaii with no bond, and my office would then seek an arrest warrant from the governor's office to bring her back. At this time, all the necessary steps are being taken as we speak for her return to Miami to be held accountable for this murder. With me today are the City of Miami Police Chief, Manny Morales, who all of us know does excellent work for our City of Miami, his Assistant City of Miami Police Chief, Armando Aguilar, to his left. I want to thank both of them and their department for the professional diligence that they exhibited in this case and for the partnership that we share. We have Gaddy Serralta, who is a U.S. Marshal of the Southern District of Florida. You all know he stood here many times by the side of those of us in law enforcement. He's always an extraordinary partner with all of us in law enforcement, who, by the way, in this case, overcame a number of challenges to secure this arrest. Marshal Serralta, he's right behind me. Gaddy Serralta played a pivotal role in connecting our law enforcement officers with the West Coast U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force to ensure that Courtney Clenney, who was over 4,700 miles away from Miami, will be able to stand before a judge here in Miami and face these charges. I'm very proud of Assistant State Attorney Khalil Queenan. He's right here, this young man in the blue suit, who is also a member of our Gun Violence Initiative. He is on this case, has been from the beginning. Thank you very much, Khalil, for your diligent work. And to his left is a very wonderful veteran homicide prosecutor, she's my Chief Assistant State Attorney, Kathleen Ho. Thank you very much. They have been heading up this investigation, and they will handle this case in the courts from this point forward. To my right, we have the very distinguished attorney, Larry Hanfield, who is the attorney for the family of Christian Obumseli. And he has brought with him his clients, Christian's brother, Jeffrey Obumseli, to his right, and his cousin, Karen Ebuna, who is the beautiful woman standing to their right. They're all here today to, all of us in law enforcement, want to express to you, as family members, our deepest sympathies for this tragic murder of your loved one. I also would like to thank and express my gratitude to the law enforcement community in Hawaii for their assistance in this matter, specifically the Hawaiian County Police Department and the Hawaiian County Prosecutor's Office. So let's talk about this case. The Chief Medical Examiner of Miami-Dade County determined that Christian's cause of death was a stab to the chest. Christian was stabbed as the knife punctured the subclavian artery in his right chest. If you look over here for just a second to either one of these screens, you will get a good idea of how large that subclavian artery is within the human heart. The chief medical examiner further determined that the knife entered Christian's chest in a downward angle to the depth of 3 inches. In other words, the medical examiner has indicated that the fatal knife wound which entered Christian's chest was the result of a forceful downward thrust penetrating 3 inches into that artery you just saw. You'll see there on those screens on either side how deep that 3 inches is. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it was certainly enough to kill him. This homicide has gained some notoriety since the defendant, Clenney, is an internet social media personality and influencer under the name of Courtney Taylor. Evidence gathered during the investigation of Christian's death showed that since November of 2020, he and the defendant, Clenney, had been involved in an extremely tempestuous and combative relationship. As an example, it was learned that the security and building staff at the Miami apartment documented many incidents of loud arguments between the couple after they moved into the building in January of 2022. Tenants as far as 2 floors above, in an apartment 2 floors above, were making complaints to security and building management about the noises and the ruckus. This problem had, in fact, had the building management moving toward evicting the couple from the building because of these many noise complaints. From the apartment elevator building, you will see that on February 21st, 2022 incident, a month after the couple moved into the building. So let's play that video if we could now. If you look at either screen, you will now see the video. That's them entering their apartment. You can see, you will draw your own conclusion, but it certainly appears that the defendant was aggressively attacking Christian. Such interactions appear to have caused Clenney and Christian to separate at various times in their relationship, including the last week of March 2022, when Clenney expelled Christian from the apartment. This occurred while Clenney's mother, Deborah Clenney, who was in town and staying in the apartment. Defendant Clenney and Christian then rekindled their relationship on Friday, April 1st, 2022, after her mother left to go home to Texas. At that time, Christian moved back into the apartment. Arguments began almost immediately. with police responding to the apartment. Police reported that Clenney appeared intoxicated when she was contacted on the evening of April 1st, 2022. This was 2 days before the homicide. On Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, the day of Christian's death, events started peacefully, with the couple filming themselves with their dogs in the apartment. A key fob for the records showed that Christian left the apartment at 1:15 p.m. and returned about 3 hours later at 4:32 p.m. with sandwiches that he had bought for both of them. So what we've done here now, if you look at the screens, you'll see there a timeline. While you look at it, I'm going to try to go through it because the timing is very important to understand in this case. So at 4:01, Clenney called Christian. Then she goes live on Instagram. And then at 4:33 p.m., she called him again, shortly after posting the video. At 4:33 p.m., Christian walks into the apartment. 10 minutes later, at 4:43 p.m., Clenney called her mother. That call lasted till about 4:49 p.m., just over 6 minutes. At 4:49, Clenney made a second call, almost immediately, to her mother. They spoke until 4:56 p.m., a little over 7 minutes. I think at 4:57 p.m., Clenney calls 911. At 4:57, police officers exit the elevator at the unit. Christian's stabbing must have occurred between 4:33 p.m., when he returned to the apartment with those sandwiches, and at 4:57 p.m., when the defendant, Clenney, called 911. Also, at the same time during that period of time, that being 4:33 p.m. to 4:57 p.m., neighbors began calling the building manager about a disturbance at the apartment. Security called 911 at 4:46, notifying them of the disturbance. 11 minutes later, at 4:57, defendant Clenney called 911 to tell the police that Christian was suffering from a stab wound and needed help. On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby." In her telephone statement to the police on the date of the incident, Clenney's mother stated she heard her daughter yelling at Christian, remember she's on the phone with her, telling him to leave the apartment, and she heard defendant Clenney saying that Christian was lying. Later, in her what we call post-Miranda recorded statement to the police, defendant Clenney admitted to having caused Christian's injury, also provided several inconsistent accounts about the incident itself. After an argument, defendant Clenney claims and says that Christian shoved her against the wall by the neck, and although he did not actually choke her, then she says he threw her to the ground but allowed her to get up. And it was at that point that defendant Clenney went to a kitchen area and got the knife. As Christian sort of approached her, she threw the knife at him from a distance that she's estimated to be about 10 feet. The police observed no visible injuries, which would have corroborated her account, and she had no injuries. In describing the stabbing incident, at no time did defendant Clenney claim Christian was armed with any type of a weapon. And based on the location of the stab of the wound, the medical examiner opined In other words, it was her opinion that throwing the knife from that distance would not have caused that fatal stab wound, but rather that it was a downward strike with a knife could have only caused that fatal stab to the artery that led to the Christian's bleeding to death. The violent and toxic 2-year relationship of Christian Obumseli and Courtney Clenney did not have to end in tragedy with Christian's murder as a victim of domestic violence. Personal relationships should never involve domestic violence. And make no mistake about it, domestic violence is a crime no one should tolerate. Men are often, unfortunately, unwilling to come forward as victims of domestic violence, or of intimate violence, as it's sometimes called. The sequence of domestic violence events can be broken, but it takes a first step. That first step needs to be taken. If anyone is caught in a domestic, dangerous, violent situation, please know that there's a strong, huge safety net of resources and shelters in this community that are available. If you are, of course, in an emergency situation, you've got to call 911, but you can also call your state attorney's domestic violence resource line. It's available 24/7, days a week at 305-547-0140. We can and we want to help. If you're in need of shelter or services, you can call Miami-Dade County Coordinated Victims Assistance Center helpline for assistance at 305-285-5900. And you'll see up on their screens, there is a QR code. Any one of you can just, that's watching this, you can just put your phone with the camera app right on that QR code. It will immediately go into a domestic violence resource line for you. So at this time, I'm going to ask our distinguished Chief of Police, Manny Morales, to come and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam State Attorney. Good afternoon, everyone. This was an extremely difficult investigation, an extremely challenging situation to be in. I want to first give my condolences publicly to the Obumseli family. And I know it's kind of tough though to swallow when it takes this length of time to try to bring justice at least to this chapter of what is going to be a long saga. However, I do have to give credit to the men and women from the homicide unit that diligently worked the case. And I want to remind everybody out there, right, that whether it's domestic or any other type of violence, the Miami Police Department will not stand by on the sidelines. The Miami Police Department will come to the aid of the victims and do everything within our power to get justice for them. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our partners at the U.S. Marshal Service that brought the defendant into justice. And we'll be here to support every step of the prosecution, and with capable personnel from the State Attorney's Office, we're looking forward to a successful prosecution in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. And at this time, we'd ask Larry Hanfield to please say a few words on behalf of the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Obumseli family, Jeffrey and Karen, who flew in from Dallas and Houston, Texas, respectively, this is a day that they only hoped for. It's very, very sad, and they are dealing with the pain as we speak. But I want to personally thank the State Attorney's Office, Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, who is a tremendous treasure to this town, for once again showing the type of leadership for every citizen for Miami-Dade County, and the leadership of the City of Miami Police Department for their commitment to bringing this day into reality, as well as the U.S. Marshal's Office for bringing to justice the arrest of the defendant. We always believed that with a thorough and fair investigation that this day would come into reality. This is such a relief for the family, but it gives restored hope that even though delayed, justice will still come. On behalf of Cedric Johnson, who's part of my investigative team, Kathleen Hogue, Chief Assistant State Attorney, and Kalia, we are very indebted to the commitment, the hard work that was done by your staff for making this day of justice a reality, and a commitment to all the citizens to Miami-Dade County. The family will not be entertaining any questions. If you have any concerns, you can direct those questions to me. But on behalf of the family, I truly want to say thank you for bringing hope and seeing that justice was done. And that's all anyone can ever ask for and expect. And thank you so much, Kathy, for doing what you've always doing, for making the citizens of Miami-Dade County very proud of you.
Thank you, Larry Hanfield. You're always the true consummate gentleman and professional. It's always a pleasure to work with you. So with that, we'll take questions in English, then we'll break down and we'll go into Spanish. So questions.
Hi. Clenney's attorney said yesterday in a statement that they have been working hand in hand with your office. He was disappointed in the way that she was apprehended while she was in rehab, and that you could just give you notice that she would have surrendered. Has she been cooperative, and to what level?
You know, I truly understand Mr. Prieto's feelings on that, because when we feel it's safe and appropriate in cases, we do work with the defense to surrender their clients. This was a little more unusual, though, in the sense that she was far away, and I'm told that she was on a remote island. So as much as we would have liked to have done that, we felt that the prudent thing to do, that the right thing to do, was to go and get her and secure her presence. Now as we move forward, we'll be as cooperative as we possibly can, and I hope that she will and he will with us.
Two things.
Hi, Raj.
Number one, was she on the phone with her mom at the time of the fact?
We believe that she was.
The second thing is that video that you played.
The elevator. Yes.
Describe the significance of that video, because you may have some say, what does that really show? It was 5 weeks beforehand, but what is the significance of that?
Well, remember, the video is not in isolation, because you have a lot of folks that live in the building. You have a lot of documentation from the building management, security folks. The video, we felt, was just a very descriptive way to show what the relationship was, and who was the aggressor. Also, I mean, you come to your own conclusions, all of you will, the public will, the jury will, as to what they saw in that video. But we thought that was a significant reflection of what everyone was telling the police, and everyone was a very combative, it was a domestic violence relationship.
Yes. Describe to us what might have been some of the factors that contributed to not initially arresting her off the bat. We knew about the problems in the building. We heard about the complaints, the neighbors, the loud fighting, whatever it was that she said when the police got there, and the blood all over the house. So why does it take this long for there to be an arrest?
Yeah, I leave that up to my police professionals as to why they did that, and we did do a warrant, but I believe a lot of it may have had to do with the gathering all of that information and reading it and having copies and then getting the medical examiner's report. Did you have a better answer than I do for that?
Sure. Our detectives know that sometimes you only get one shot at it, and you want to get it right, because we want to make sure that we do everything right by the book to ensure the family gets the justice they deserve. So as you're reviewing and you have only one side, and the definitive evidence is coming from the medical examiners, the subpoenas that we get from the phone, the conversation, the texts, That video was not initially available to us, so as we begin to put the case, we know that we have to put a comprehensive case, bring it to the state attorney's office with something that's solid to pursue a charge, especially in a murder case.
Lastly, and I understand how sensitive this all is to everybody involved and about the great work that's been done by everybody standing there. The family and the gentleman to your immediate right and his family members complained to us that they had to learn about this death through the medical examiner's office and not the Miami Police Department. Can you explain that?
Absolutely, and my apologies to the families for learning about the horrific act that happened to one of their family members from the medical examiner, not us. Our homicide detectives contacted the local department in Texas to have an individual in person from a law enforcement agency be the one to deliver the news. Anytime that we have a homicide, standard operating procedure to make contact in person. When we're talking about the death of someone, you don't want to get a phone call. So we reached out to that department, and it got lost in the transfer of information. And before we were able to send the local department to contact the family to put them in touch with us to deliver the news, they were reached out by the medical examiners. El español viene después.
I have one last question. There appears to be two critical pieces of evidence here, in that Clenney lied about throwing a knife into the medical examiner's office.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that she lied about being thrown to the ground. Is that accurate to say?
Okay. So, yes, there's no physical evidence that led us to believe that she was actually physically harmed in any way the day of the incident.
My question would be for you, Mary. From the family's perspective, they have been this whole time shocked to hear that she was trying to say this was, an act of Christian starting things and, in self-defense. How relieved are they to really know now, that there is evidence of this and going forward she was arrested? Can you talk about the relief of the family right now?
Yes, thank you. Good question. They are very, very, with great appreciation, relieved to hear that the true facts are finally coming out. They always knew, and we knew through our investigation, that the defendant had a history of being the aggressor throughout the relationship. She had a history of attacking the deceased. And so therefore, what you saw in the elevator was just an isolated glimpse of a pattern of conduct that was demonstrated by the defendant in this case. Her counsel, as the defense attorney, has indicated in different medias that she was also a victim of human trafficking and domestic violence. Clearly, the evidence is going to show that there is no evidence to support any of those. We believe that once all the evidence is made public and come out, I'm confident in the state attorney's office, I'm confident in the investigation, and I'm confident that continued justice will be done.
To that point, this question is for the state attorney. Clenney's attorney did say yesterday that the charges are an injustice because she is a victim of domestic violence and human trafficking. Can you explain where the human trafficking element comes from?
Did you ask him?
I did.
Okay. Then he's the best person to answer that question. I don't mean to be flip, because you know how I feel about human trafficking. I've been, just a trailblazer in that area, and we have a real issue in Miami-Dade County and in Florida of human trafficking. Florida ranks number 2 in the United States in human trafficking, and Miami is number 1, and we have the only human trafficking center that I'm aware of in the United States here. So I take human trafficking allegations very seriously. You know what happens at this point? We have the evidence that we have with the police, and it's going to be a continuing process from this day forward. So the defense attorney will, of course, make his case, and he'll present his evidence, and both sides will then proceed with this whole process. We won't be doing this in the media. This belongs in the court of law, and that's where we'll go from here on.
From photo shoot to mugshot, Courtney Clenney, a popular 26-year-old OnlyFans model, was arrested in Hawaii on Wednesday, suspected of stabbing her boyfriend to death in Miami back in April.
We are charging 26-year-old Courtney Taylor Clenney with 1 count of second-degree murder in Christian's death. I'm told that she was on a remote island. We felt that the prudent thing to do, that the right thing to do, was to go and get her and secure her presence.
Her lawyer, Frank Pietro, said she was arrested while in rehabilitation for substance abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder. 27-year-old Christian Toby Obumseli was found dead at the couple's high-rise condo in Miami on April 3rd. Miami-Dade state attorney laying out a history of arguments and fights between them during a press conference Thursday, saying noise complaints were common, releasing a video showing Clenney previously beating Obumseli during an argument. Police were even called to the apartment only 2 days before the killing. Obumseli's family attorney was there too.
She had a history of attacking. What you saw in the elevator was just an isolated glimpse of a pattern of conduct that was demonstrated by the defendant.
The social media star with millions of followers telling police she stabbed Obumseli in self-defense. In a statement, Clenney's lawyer said he was completely shocked with the arrest and that, quote, Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Miami police had previously described Obumseli's death as a domestic violence-related incident. Back in April, Obumseli's family spoke to reporters questioning the investigation.
We have no cause to believe that this was a case of self-defense. Toby was raised by a very strong family with strong morals, strong values. This was somehow warranted is unthinkable.
Authorities say Clenney is set to be extradited back to Florida.
Kristen, did police release any other details about the incident that led them to arrest Clenney?
Right, Gotti. Well, they say on the day of the incident that Clenney told them that Christian slammed her and choked her, leading her to throw a knife about 10 feet across a room. But today, authorities say they saw no evidence that matched up with that story. They say the medical examiner said that the stab wound that killed Christian was from a downward stab, and that would not at all be consistent with a knife being thrown. Gotti.
Courtney Clenney is back in Miami after U.S. Marshals arrested her in Hawaii. Today, at her first appearance, her lawyer made several comments about the investigation.
This is a new mugshot for Courtney Clenney. She's sitting inside a jail cell in Miami. Clenney, known for her large following on Instagram and OnlyFans, is accused of killing her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. After a 4-month investigation, police arrested Clenney while at a rehab facility in Hawaii. Today, she appeared before a judge in a vest. Her lawyer made comments to the judge about the second-degree murder charge she faces.
There's not probable cause for second-degree murder, Judge. At best, it's manslaughter.
Her lawyer says the state cherry-picked text messages in their finding of probable cause and that Clenney did have some bruising.
The detective also indicated there's no signs of bruising that were consistent with Ms. Clenney. I was at the homicide unit and I have photographs of her bruising.
Ultimately, the judge says Clenney's legal team must file motions and have them heard before a judge familiar with the case. In April, police say Clenney stabbed Obumseli inside their luxury apartment during an argument. Following her arrest, the state attorney's office released a video of Clenney hitting Obumseli repeatedly inside an elevator 2 months before the stabbing. She faces up to life in prison if convicted.
Their relationship on Friday, April 1st, 2022, after her mother left to go home to Texas. At that time, Christian moved back into the apartment. Arguments began almost immediately, with police responding to the apartment. Police reported that Clenney appeared intoxicated when she was contacted on the evening of April 1st, 2022. This was 2 days before the homicide. On Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, the day of Christian's death, events started peacefully, with the couple filming themselves with their dogs in the apartment. A key fob for the records showed that Christian left the apartment at 1:15 p.m. and returned about 3 hours later at 4:32 p.m. with sandwiches that he had bought for both of them. So what we've done here now, if you look at the screens, you'll see there a timeline. Well, if you look at it, I'm going to try to go through it because the timing is very important to understand in this case. So at 4:01, Clenney called Christian. Then she goes live on Instagram. And then at 4:33 p.m., she called him again, shortly after posting the video. At 4:33 p.m., Christian walks into the apartment. 10 minutes later, at 4:43 p.m., Clenney called her mother. That call lasted until about 4:49 p.m., just over 6 minutes. At 4:49, Clenney made a second call, almost immediately, to her mother. They spoke until 4:56 p.m., a little over 7 minutes. I think at 4:57 p.m., Clenney calls 911. At 4:57, police officers exit the elevator at the unit. Christian's stabbing must have occurred between 4:33 p.m. when he returned to the apartment with those sandwiches and at 4:57 p.m. when the defendant, Clenney, called 911. Also, at the same time during that period of time, that being 4:33 p.m. to 4:57 p.m., neighbors began calling the building manager about a disturbance at the apartment. Security called 911 at 4:46, notifying them of the disturbance. 11 minutes later, at 4:57, defendant Clenney called 911 to tell the police that Christian was suffering from a stab wound and needed help. On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby." In her telephone statement to the police on the date of the incident, Clenney's mother stated she heard her daughter yelling at Christian, remember she's on the phone with her, telling him to leave the apartment, and she heard defendant Clenney saying that Christian was lying. Later, in her what we call post-Miranda recorded statement to the police, defendant Clenney admitted to having caused Christian's injury, also provided several inconsistent accounts about the incident itself. After an argument, defendant Clenney claims and says that Christian shoved her against the wall by the neck, and although he did not actually choke her, then she says he threw her to the ground but allowed her to get up. And it was at that point that defendant Clenney went to a kitchen area and got the knife. As Christian sort of approached her, she threw the knife at him from a distance that she's estimated to be about 10 feet. The police observed no visible injuries, which would have corroborated her account, and she had no injuries.
The Instagram model accused of fatally stabbing her boyfriend in a luxury Edgewater apartment back in April has been arrested on a murder charge. Courtney Clenney was taken into custody in Hawaii, where she'd been in rehab. She will be extradited to Miami to face trial. Clenney is being charged with second-degree murder with a deadly weapon in the death of Christian Obumseli. Tonight, her attorney sent us a statement saying, in part, "We are completely shocked at Courtney's arrest based upon the clear evidence of self-defense in this matter. Obumseli
Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. The arrest caps a 4-month investigation by Miami police. Miami State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle told CBS 4 she'll hold a press conference Thursday to announce the filing of criminal charges against Clenney. Obumseli's family has been outspoken about this case.
I do believe she is the killer, and she does need to be arrested.
Devastation doesn't quite describe what my family's experiencing right now. Yesterday, we finally told our 93-year-old grandmother that her grandson, who was expected to come home to Texas to visit for his 28th birthday, will no longer or ever be returning home.
Miami police told us they were called to the condo to investigate a domestic violence call. There they found Obumseli suffering a knife wound. He died while being taken to the hospital.
Police say this woman stabbed her boyfriend to death 4 months ago inside their apartment. Today, she was picked up by U.S. Marshals in Hawaii. This is OnlyFans model Courtney Clenney. She's known for her pictures and her 2 million followers on Instagram. But Wednesday, she posed for a very different picture, a new mugshot. She was arrested in Hawaii, facing a murder charge 4 months after police say she stabbed her boyfriend to death. Detectives revealed Christian Obumseli was stabbed during an argument inside their luxury Miami apartment in April. After the stabbing, video obtained by TMZ shows Clenney handcuffed and covered in blood sitting on the floor. Clenney was not charged during the initial investigation. Detectives spent months looking into whether or not this was a case of self-defense. She was Baker acted shortly after Miami police brought her in for questioning. Her lawyer sent me this statement hours after the arrest. It reads in part, Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Further, we are disappointed that the state attorney sought an arrest warrant in this matter. In April, a neighbor told Local 10 he had a clear view of the couple's apartment and saw Clenney getting physically abused. Obumseli's family says he was not abusive and have been vocal calling for an arrest in his case. Police also responded to multiple disturbance calls to the apartment. Police have not revealed what led them to make an arrest 4 months later. I did reach out to Obumseli's family for a statement, but they didn't get back to me in time for this broadcast. Also, her lawyer says she was in Hawaii seeking treatment for PTSD and other issues related to this case.
Investigators releasing new video of an elevator attack that shows a woman striking a man months before she allegedly admitted to killing him. She says it was self-defense.
Without justification, Lynn, and without any regard for human life, that is from the state attorney's office and from an arrest warrant naming Courtney Clenney as a murderer in the second degree. There's more as well. We'll show you that video again from inside that elevator that you just talked about. And this was not of the day of the murder, not from the day of the murder, April 3rd. This was from February 21st, and it was played by the state attorney today to show the violent dynamic that persisted within their relationship, with Courtney Clenney, they say, as the aggressor during episodes like this one and others. You see her attacker, or I should say you see her attacking her then boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, in that elevator before he pushes her away and tries to restrain her. I want to take you to another image now. Let's fast forward to yesterday in Hawaii. And this is her booking photo. We showed it to you last night first. She was arrested by U.S. Marshals there. We're told she was in a rehab facility, and that's why she was in Hawaii. But as we show you some more video, we tell you why she was arrested, and these images represent why. This is from April 3rd. It's when she stabbed Obumseli to death in the Paraiso condo in Miami. An 8-centimeter deep stab wound is what killed Obumseli. And they showed us a picture of what the knife looked like today at the state attorney's office. Clenney, on April 3rd, and just after the killing, claimed self-defense to Miami police. She was not initially arrested, but she is now. And here's State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle from earlier.
At 4:57, defendant Clenney called 911 to tell the police that Christian was suffering from a stab wound and needed help. On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby." At this time, all the necessary steps are being taken as we speak for her return to Miami to be held accountable for this murder.
But she has waived extradition. We're going to have a lot more on what the state attorney had to say and more on that now unsealed arrest warrant.
In the meantime, new details tonight in the deadly Edgewater stabbing. Instagram model Courtney Clenney has been charged with murder. This is video of her and the victim, Christian Obumseli, getting into a heated argument inside of an elevator. This happened months before the deadly stabbing. Miami State's Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle announcing the criminal charges today against Clenney.
Jim, she'll appear in front of a Honolulu judge at 7:30. That's just about an hour and a half from right now. And we will have cameras in the courtroom when that happens. Now, Clenney told police when she stabbed her boyfriend, she was acting in self-defense. But the state attorney's office says after months of investigating, their evidence says otherwise.
Key evidence, this video showing a shocking glimpse inside Courtney Clenney and Christian Obumseli's tumultuous relationship. We're learning domestic violence was a constant in the couple's relationship.
The defendant had a history of being the aggressor throughout the relationship.
According to this arrest warrant, One Paricio security documented so many incidents of arguing, including complaints from tenants 2 floors above, that the building's management was moving towards legal action to evict the couple.
Extremely tempestuous and combative relationship.
The arrest warrant says April 3rd started off peacefully, with the couple playing with their dog.
Christian left the apartment at 1:15 p.m. and returned about 3 hours later.
At 4:33, Clenney calls Christian just as he's walking into the apartment. About 10 minutes later, Clenney calls her mom. That call lasts for just about 6 minutes until she calls her again at 4:49. The state attorney's office believes Clenney's mother may have been on the phone when the stabbing happened. At 4:57, Clenney called 911.
On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
According to reports, when officers arrived, Clenney was covered in blood, cradling Obumseli. She claimed she threw a knife at him from 10 feet away, but a graphic description from the medical examiner's office revealed Obumseli suffered from a knife wound 3 inches deep, the type of wound, they say, caused by forceful pressure.
We always believed that with a thorough and fair investigation that this day would come into reality. This is such a relief for the family, but it gives restored hope that even though delayed, justice will still come.
We are learning more this morning about the social media star now accused of murdering her boyfriend. She was arrested in Hawaii, and now authorities are releasing new video evidence in the case. Here's ABC's Christine Sloan.
Courtney Clenney.
And Ms. Clenney, how old are you?
I'm 26.
This morning, social media personality and OnlyFans model Courtney Clenney, also known as Courtney Taylor, has made her first court appearance in Hawaii after being charged in the murder of her boyfriend. Investigators releasing this video from earlier this year. They say it shows Clenney repeatedly punching boyfriend Christian Obumseli inside a private elevator in their Miami high-rise. Prosecutors say weeks later in April, Clenney stabbed Obumseli to death and then called 911.
On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
The arrest warrant revealing a tumultuous relationship between the social media influencer who has millions of followers and her cryptocurrency investor boyfriend, with domestic violence accusations on both sides. Authorities say the staff at the couple's building documented so many loud arguments, they were taking steps to evict them. As for the second-degree murder charge she now faces, Clenney insists it was self-defense, saying she threw a knife from a distance after Obumseli shoved her against the wall by the neck and threw her to the ground. But prosecutors don't buy her story.
The police observed no visible injuries, which would have corroborated her account, and she had no injuries.
Clenney has waived her right to an extradition from Hawaii, meaning she'll now return to Florida to fight the murder charge.
The Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office expected to lay out its case against a social media influencer accused of murder.
Police in Hawaii arresting the woman 4 months after police say she stabbed her boyfriend. CBS 4's Jacqueline Quinn joins us live from the State Attorney's Office to explain. Jacqueline, good morning.
Good morning. And Trish, we've already heard from her lawyer saying that she is facing a murder charge at this point, and we're waiting to hear more specifics later this afternoon from the state attorney's office. But the reason why she was in Hawaii, her attorney says, is because she has been receiving PTSD treatment and related issues to this case. Now, this case goes back to April 3rd. Police were called to one Paraiso in Edgewater. They found Clenney's boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, stabbed inside of her apartment. He was taken to the hospital, but he died on the way there. Since then, his family has been pretty open about how they feel, saying they want her arrested. Courtney Clenney's team have said this was a domestic issue that came about because she removed her boyfriend from the lease, but he kept coming back. Her attorney sent us this statement expressing that we are completely shocked at Courtney's arrest based upon the clear evidence of self-defense in this matter. Obumseli attacked her and choked her that evening. Courtney had no choice but to meet force with force. Further, we are disappointed that the state attorney sought an arrest warrant in this matter. Now, Obumseli's family has said nothing could have warranted his death.
Devastation doesn't quite describe what my family's experiencing right now. Yesterday, we finally told our 93-year-old grandmother that her grandson, who was expected to come home to Texas to visit for his 28th birthday, will no longer or ever be returning home.
She was arrested this week in Hawaii 4 months after the incident.
Well, she's not getting out of jail anytime soon, we can tell you that. There is a hearing set for next month, September 12th, that'll determine, or rather confirm, that she's been brought here to Miami to face the music in a timely manner. Courtney Clenney now facing murder charges, you said it, 4 months, I should say, after the original incident.
26-year-old Courtney Clenney is behind bars in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Ms. Clenney will waive her right to an extradition hearing.
In a court appearance late Thursday, the Instagram and OnlyFans model was denied bail. She will be extradited to Miami within 30 days. Hours earlier, the Miami-Dade State Attorney released video filmed in February, purporting to show Clenney hitting her boyfriend Christian Obumseli multiple times. A video indicative, say prosecutors, of the violence present in their relationship. 2 months after this violent encounter, detectives say Clenney knifed Obumseli to death.
Defendant Clenney called 911 to tell the police that Christian was suffering from a stab wound. Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying.
Prosecutors say she stabbed the 27-year-old man in the chest with a kitchen knife while he was unarmed, and that it was neither an accident nor self-defense.
It was a downward strike with a knife.
In fact, investigators say Clenney told them a different story that didn't add up.
She threw the knife at him from a distance that she's estimated to be about 10 feet.
In a statement, Clenney's attorney said, quote, "It is a shame that the state attorney's office is seeking to win this case in the court of public opinion by showing an irrelevant and likely inadmissible video of Courtney in an elevator getting physical." It went on to say Obumseli was the abuser, the worst kind of abuser, and this is a case of self-defense, and the facts that will be presented at trial will prove this.
Courtney Clenney facing a judge after being extradited from Hawaii. CBS 4's Trish Christakis is live from West Miami-Dade, where Clenney is still being held tonight. Trish, this case has certainly taken a lot of turns. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, Carly, Courtney Clenney appeared in bond court this morning. Her attorney was present, like you just mentioned. She is being held at TGK behind me. Now, her attorney argued that there is not probable cause for second-degree murder.
There's an information that has been filed for a murder in the second degree with a weapon, a life felony. And the original warrant was issued with a no bond hold.
Courtney Clenney, accused of stabbing her boyfriend Christian Obumseli to death, appeared in bond court Saturday morning. Her lawyer, Frank Prieto, says there is an issue with the arrest warrant.
I just feel it's important that the court be made aware that that warrant that Judge Jello signed, I do find that he did find probable cause. However, there's not probable cause for second-degree murder, Judge. At best, it's manslaughter.
Clenney's attorney claims that there were several misstatements in the warrant, indicating cherry-picked text messages and alleged bruising. Prieto says he has proof.
The detective also indicated there's no signs of bruising that were consistent with Ms. Clenney. I was at the homicide unit and I have photographs of her bruising.
I have reached out to Clenney's lawyer to see the evidence they're claiming they have, but have yet to hear back.
I can go on all day, Judge. At this stage, it is inappropriate for a first appearance judge to be addressing these substantive matters on this proceeding. This is something that counsel should raise through written motion before the trial court.
The judge addressed Clenney and said that she's not the judge who should be making these decisions, and she wants a judge who knows more about her case to take over.
I don't want to make any sort of ruling and then jeopardize whatever right for review you'd have in front of a judge who may be more familiar with the facts of the case.
I understand, Your Honor.
For all those reasons, I'm going to abstain at this moment from interjecting my opinion and allow this case to be reset in front of the judge who's going to be handling the case.
And there is no bond at the state. Arraignment for her is scheduled September 6th.
It's a painting that's uncomfortable to look at, angry and chaotic. It's the same way Aiden Nesvisky says it arrived on his balcony.
And it came crashing down, and it was pretty scary. And
Nesvisky says his neighbors threw the painting onto his 10th floor balcony during a violent dispute from their penthouse apartment. Fights were frequent in the nearly 2 years they lived above him.
Behind closed doors, we just started hearing some shouting, yelling. We don't know who was starting what. We didn't get a lot of context. Occasionally we would hear some glasses break and some banging on the walls, floors. Not sho who was doing it.
Thursday, authorities in Florida charged Nesvisky's former neighbor, 26-year-old social media star Courtney Clenney, with stabbing her boyfriend, Christian Toby Obumseli, to death.
I just want people to know that it had been going on for a long time, and it definitely could have been stopped.
Nesvisky says police were called on the couple multiple times when they lived here at Berkshire Riverview in South Austin. But when they moved to Florida earlier this year, Miami State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle says the violence continued, getting so bad their building was prepared to evict them.
The violent and toxic 2-year relationship of Christian Obumseli and Courtney Clenney did not have to end in tragedy with Christian's murder as a victim of domestic violence.
That's why Nesvisky, whose former roommate now keeps the tiger in a storage locker, says he's talking about the tumultuous 2 years he spent living alongside, even attending a music festival with a couple he says otherwise seemed friendly and normal.
It is domestic violence. I mean, if you hear something, see something, say something, you never know, what's going on behind closed doors. It's a really sad situation, and I think ultimately it could have been avoided.
In a statement, Clenney's attorney called this a case of self-defense, writing, and I'm quoting here, "We're confident she will be exonerated and Courtney will be seen for what she is, a victim of domestic abuse that survived her abuser." We also reached out to Obumseli's attorney. We haven't heard back.
The OnlyFans model accused of stabbing her boyfriend to death made an appearance in front of a judge after being extradited from Hawaii to South Florida. She was transferred to a Miami-Dade County jail yesterday, where she remains tonight.
In handcuffs and a jumpsuit, OnlyFans model Courtney Clenney, who's accused of murdering boyfriend Christian Obumseli in the couple's Edgewater apartment earlier this year, appearing in Miami-Dade bond court Saturday morning.
Yes, Your Honor.
Clenney was extradited from Hawaii and booked in the Miami-Dade County Jail Friday.
What would lead to somebody, killing them? Because he was never that type of guy.
Brooklyn Sanders, who played high school football with Obumseli, says he spent months wondering if Clenney would be charged.
I was actually, relieved that something actually was done about it, and it wasn't just going to be like a cold case.
In bond court Saturday, Clenney's attorneys, who say she was acting in self-defense, argued there was no probable cause for second-degree murder.
There's not probable cause for second-degree murder, Judge. At best, it's manslaughter, and there's several misstatements indicating the government cherry-picked certain text messages. The detective also indicated there's no signs of bruising that were consistent with Ms. Clenney. I was at the homicide unit and I have photographs of her bruising.
Prosecutors pushed back against her attorney's argument, saying it wasn't the time or place for that kind of decision.
At this stage, it is inappropriate for a first appearance judge to be addressing these substantive matters on this proceeding. This is something that counsel should raise through written motion.
After hearing both sides, the judge deciding to abstain from a ruling on probable cause.
So, Ms. Clenney, your attorneys are here and they're fighting hard for you. But at this time, I'm not really the judge who should be making these decisions. It should be a judge who knows a little bit more about your case.
Her attorneys say she was in a rehab facility in Hawaii before her arrest and extradition. At this time, she's being held without a bond.
Hearing the 911 calls from a case that has gained a lot of national attention.
An Instagram model charged with stabbing her boyfriend to death at their Miami apartment in April. She was arrested months after the incident. Local 10 News reporter Nelson Bovic joins us live from Miami.
And she has those dramatic calls along with some body cam video days before that stabbing took place.
Well, Christy and Janice, in this 911 call, Courtney Clenney is frantic. She is heard screaming, at one point even apologizing to her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. We even hear his voice, what appears to be his final words.
So my boyfriend is dying of a stab.
It's a panicked and frantic 911 call coming from Courtney Clenney, the OnlyFans model accused of stabbing her boyfriend Christian Obumseli to death. You can hear Obumseli in the background saying what appears to be his final words.
He's gonna die, I can't feel my arm.
Repeating them.
Can't feel my arm.
Clenney apologizing.
Baby, I'm so sorry.
Prosecutors say she stabbed Obumseli in the chest with a kitchen knife on Sunday, April 3rd, while he was unarmed, claiming it was not an accident nor done in self-defense.
The knife entered Christian's chest in a downward angle to the depth of 3 inches.
Clenney's attorney stating otherwise, saying Obumseli was the abuser and that this is indeed a case of self-defense. So prosecutors say that Clenney's self-defense story is inconsistent, that it has holes in it. She is facing a second-degree murder charge, expected to make another court appearance in December. Well, Calvin, in this newly released 911 call, Courtney Clenney is absolutely frantic. She is screaming, telling her boyfriend Christian Obumseli that she is sorry for allegedly stabbing him. You hear his voice on the line. He says he feels like he's going to die.
So my boyfriend is dying of a stab.
It's a panicked and frantic 911 call coming from Courtney Clenney, the OnlyFans model accused of stabbing her boyfriend Christian Obumseli to death. You can hear Obumseli in the background saying what appears to be his final words.
He's gonna die, I can't feel my arm.
Clenney apologizing.
Baby, I'm so sorry.
Prosecutors say Clenney stabbed Obumseli in the chest with a kitchen knife on Sunday, April 3rd, while he was unarmed, claiming it was not done in self-defense. Her attorneys say otherwise.
What she did that day was because she had no other choice. She was simply defending herself.
2 days prior to Obumseli's death, officers were at Clenney's apartment building, One Paraíso in Miami, where building employees called police in regards to a domestic disturbance. Clenney says she wanted a restraining order against Obumseli, but never mentioned that there was violence.
It seems more like she is trying to defend herself with these officers instead of getting the help that she's clearly seeking.
Clenney was eventually charged for Obumseli's murder back in August. Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle says her story didn't add up. She alleged that she threw a knife when the medical examiner concluded
It was a downward strike with a knife.
We can't speak to the specifics of exactly what happened in the apartment that night.
The state attorney's office also releasing this video 6 weeks before Obumseli was killed, showing Clenney getting violent with him in an elevator.
It's a snapshot in time. It doesn't really tell you the whole picture.
So Clenney is facing a second-degree murder charge. Her attorneys tell me they want to set up a bond hearing for her sometime next month. It is during that hearing, they tell me, that more evidence will be presented.
New video tonight showing OnlyFans and Instagram model Courtney Clenney just days before prosecutors say she stabbed her boyfriend to death.
I want a restraining order against Christian Obumseli.
We don't issue those.
Because, no, I'm serious. Can I do that? Where
you have
can
to go
I
to court. You have to go to
okay,
downtown.
but how can I make myself first? Because I know him and he would do it.
It's police body camera video released by the state attorney's office showing a frazzled and upset Clenney speaking to 3 City of Miami police officers who had been called by a building employee to report a domestic dispute.
Christian, please, just like don't get me kicked out of my own apartment.
We just want him getting, we just
I'm scared. I'm scared of him.
The employee explained to police that her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, had been hanging in the lobby since Courtney did not want him up in their apartment and said the situation escalated.
We get down here to the lobby area, her boyfriend comes charging towards her, and we actually try to get in the middle of it.
Clenney's attorneys, who have maintained that she's been the victim all along, says she was forced to act in self-defense. They say this video, quote, clearly shows Courtney was failed by the system as a woman seeking help from an abusive and violent relationship. It's not the first piece of video evidence released in the case. Back in August, when announcing her arrest, prosecutors released this video of Clenney and Obumseli in their building elevator just weeks before his death that they say shows Clenney acting violently towards her boyfriend. Prosecutors said the two had a tempestuous relationship with multiple incidents of domestic violence from both sides.
You guys have been called out multiple times.
In this police body camera video, you can hear the building employee tell the officer that this isn't the first time police have been called on the couple.
The management already been notified about multiple, and they already
something
know
about
they
it.
already issue her fines, they already issue her eviction.
At the end of the body camera video, officers do escort Clenney upstairs just to make sure she is safe in her apartment, but tell her that a restraining order has to go through the court systems. And they say to her that there is nothing that they can do because they say her boyfriend technically lives there and he is not trespassing.
New evidence now this morning coming to light, revealing a really rocky relationship between a social media model and her boyfriend that she's been charged with killing. NBC6's Julia Baggs, she joins us live in Miami with more details on what we're learning about the couple's relationship.
Yeah, and Constance, you'll remember that killing happened here in Edgewater back in April at the couple's apartment. And the chilling audio you're about to hear apparently comes from secret recordings made by the model's boyfriend sometime before police claim she stabbed him to death.
Just shut up and let me slap you, dumb. Give me my phone.
You have your phone.
That's an exchange between social media model Courtney Clenney and her late boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. Clenney can be heard screaming, there's a reference to slapping, and Clenney uses a racial slur. Also just released, new photos showing that bloody crime scene in the couple's Edgewater apartment and building elevator. Even Clenney's body apparently covered in Obumseli's blood. NBC6 obtained the audio and images through a records request. Clenney is behind bars this morning, charged with second-degree murder. She claims she killed Obumseli in self-defense. Now, as we take another live look here at Edgewater, in a statement, Clenney's attorneys say she is not going to trial for previous arguments or recorded rants, but for defending herself.
Tonight, in the case of Courtney Clenney, the social media model charged with second-degree murder after stabbing her boyfriend to death.
The Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office has released a slew of evidence, some of which are videos the victim himself took of their fights, and he seemingly did it without her knowing about it.
CBS 4's Naja Sherman went through the cell phone videos and joins us from the newsroom tonight with more. Naja, what'd you find?
Lauren and Elliot, tonight I listened to those phone recordings. They are very disturbing. They include racial slurs. Clenney is screaming and she is cursing out Obumseli.
Sorry. Just shut up. Give me my phone. Find it. Find it. Charge it.
For the first time, we are hearing audio recordings that Christian Obumseli secretly took of his girlfriend Courtney Clenney in the days leading up to when she stabbed him to death. Most of the audio we can't play for you on air, so I pulled just a few quick clips to let you hear the tone of what Obumseli captured.
Can you help me find it?
I won!
So what?
Find it!
The secret recordings are now in evidence in the murder case against Courtney Clenney, and they offer a revealing window into how deeply toxic their relationship was. The prosecution could present them to a jury to show Clenney as a domestic abuser who ultimately plunged a knife into the chest of her boyfriend inside their luxury apartment in Miami.
You literally talked to her without telling me!
Courtney, I was on a bike ride and she passed me and I said hi.
The cell phone was reportedly hidden in Obumseli's pocket, so there isn't much video, but the audio is clear and it's painful to hear.
Stacey, I'm sorry. Okay? Just let me apologize.
In many of the recordings, Obumseli is repeatedly apologizing. Clenney calls him the N-word multiple times. The video clips on his phone were recovered by Miami police investigators as part of their homicide probe. Our reporting partners at the Herald obtained them from the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office through a public records request.
Clenney remains jailed on a second-degree murder charge. Her defense team has not commented on the recordings. Naja Sherman, CBS 4 News Tonight.
Apologize. No! Okay, you don't need to. Don't find that phone!
Right now, toxic tapes. We're hearing recordings made by the man who was stabbed to death by his own girlfriend. Before he was killed, Christian Obumseli documented a series of violent arguments with his OnlyFans girlfriend, who has since been charged with his murder.
Tonight we have these recordings which are very disturbing, and I want to warn you, the crime scene photos are very disturbing as well. This is Courtney Clenney after prosecutors say she killed her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. She's left with only one fake fingernail, blood on her hands, blood all over the apartment. These are the crime scene photos, one by one, showing the carnage. The defense maintains she was a victim of domestic violence. Pictures of her hands taken to see if there were any defensive wounds. And now additional new evidence. Obumseli was recording Clenney in the months leading up to his death on his phone. Take a listen.
But you hit me. Shut the up.
And listen to this racial expletive. Once again, the defense saying this was self-defense. Prosecutors arguing otherwise. They say this death was not an accident or done in self-defense. And now we are getting a closer look at the scene where Christian Obumseli lost his life. Obumseli was stabbed in the chest, and at the end of the day, the jury will have to decide in this case whether this was self-defense or second-degree murder.